What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, UFC CEO and founder and president Dana White steps in and chimes in on legendary boxing promoter, top ranked CEO and promoter Bob Arum and his recent comments about the best fighter in the sport of boxing who happens to fight under his banner of Top Rank and ESPN on the network in which he fights for. ESPN is also tied to Dana White. He has ties in a marriage with ESPN as well. Bob Arum recently had some comments about undefeated three-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, and currently the WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world, Terence Crawford, immediately following, or it was being reported that it was actually on the wake of Terence Crawford's showdown with former IBF welterweight world champion British superstar boxer Special K Kell Brook. With that said, Bob Arum was asked about re-signing Terence Crawford to a contract. Terence Crawford talked about his contract being almost up with Top Rank and Bob Arum and landing those massive big fights over with the PBC, the Premier Boxing Champions, who is advised by Al Heyman, who's the founder of the PBC, the Premier Boxing Champions, and that's where all of the top welterweights reside, right? So Terence Crawford, his lawyer, stated that they contacted Top Rank and they expressed their displeasure with the fact that Terence Crawford has yet to secure a big, lucrative, mega fight against one of these fighters, and he's not happy about it, right? Terence Crawford was on the podcast with Brian Custer, Last Stand podcast with Brian Custer, and Brian Custer asked him, what's the possibility you signing with the PBC after your contract expires in October of 2021? And Terence Crawford stated that it's all business, and he definitely would look. That's something he would look into. I mean, the boxing world and the fans, the pundits were all shocked that Terence Crawford, when he became a free agent not too long ago, re-signed with Top Rank and Bob Arum, as there aren't too many welterweights over there that are big names and big fights for Terence Bud Crawford. Bob Arum recently stated on my show and on another show on Fred on Barbershop Conversations, in which Bob Arum stated that if Terence Crawford wants to leave and go to the PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, he's all for it, because if he feels like he could get the big fights over there and they're more lucrative, he could get more money, then he's all for it. He's also stated that if he wanted to stay with us, he could wait until we have a lot of fighters coming up from junior welterweight, making their debut at welterweight, and those are big fights for him. Immediately comes to mind Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez winner. They're going to be fighting for undisputed pretty soon. And the winner of that fight is looking to fight Terence Crawford when they move up. Bob Arum stated that I have Terence Crawford for one more year and at least two more fights. Obviously, he's signed to October of 2021. So Bob Arum stated that, he's not going to essentially bust his brain, re-signing Terence Crawford. He said that we lost more money on Terence Crawford in 3 fights than we've gained. He said, well, all the money we lost on Terence Crawford, I could build a mansion in Beverly Hills. So, that wasn't that didn't go over well with the boxing fans, the boxing pundits, and one guy in particular, Dana White, who is the UFC president, right? CEO and UFC president. He sold part of his company, but he is, still the face of the UFC. And here's the thing. Dana White has always been looking to get into the sport of boxing. He's always been looking to be a promoter in the sport of boxing. Now, Dana White, here's where it gets tricky, because Dana White has a very close relationship with former legendary, retired, undefeated, pound-for-pound former king, former 5-division world champion, the man known as Money, Floyd Money Mayweather, right? Dana White has a close relationship with Floyd Mayweather. Dana White did business with Floyd Mayweather as he put on a fight between Floyd Mayweather and, at the time, UFC's top superstar, Conor McGregor, okay? And they did a huge, lucrative deal and big, massive money fight that saw guys make over, Floyd Mayweather made over $200 million. Conor McGregor made $150 million. It grossed over, I believe, 3.5 million pay-per-views. You know, it just did big, right? And Floyd Mayweather recently came out and said some interesting statements. He stated that he gave his thoughts on Terence Crawford. He said Terence Crawford needs to be a much bigger star than what he is. He has all the skills. He's definitely the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, but he needs to be promoted. He should be a much bigger star, and he needs to be promoted with guys that are going to look to make him a superstar. He should be a much bigger star than what he is. I gave out the blueprint when I left Top Rank and bought myself out for $750,000, and look where I ended up today. Look what I've done for myself today. I gave Terence Crawford the blueprint. Terence Crawford needs to be a much bigger star. Now, we know Floyd Mayweather has his own promotional company with Mayweather Promotions, who is, you know, the brother or sister to PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, right? They do business hand in hand. So with that said, Dana White has a huge relationship with Floyd Mayweather. Dana White been campaigning to be a promoter within the sport of boxing for quite some time. It is no coincidence that Dana White came out recently and just absolutely ripped into Bob Arum and his comments because they see a gold mine. Dana White and Floyd Mayweather are in cahoots. They see a gold mine in Terence Crawford. They understand that Terence Crawford will be a free agent soon. They know they have big, lucrative fights with Errol Spence Jr., undefeated, unified WBC, IBF, welterweight world champion. They also have big money fights with former two-time welterweight world champion, Showtime Sean Porter. They have big money fights with none other than 8th division world champion, legendary, iconic Filipino superstar boxer who's currently the WBA welterweight world champion, Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. There's also other fights, like fights against former unified welterweight world champion superstar boxer Keith one-time Thurman. So there's a lot of fights over there for Terence Crawford. And best believe, what's the next biggest fight if you don't get Manny Pacquiao? If Manny Pacquiao can't get the Floyd Mayweather fight that he was seeking, what's the next biggest thing? Who's the guy that resembles Floyd Mayweather the most? You got it, Terence Bud Crawford. Now, don't be surprised to see Dana White, Floyd Mayweather come together with the PBC and Al Heyman to buy out Terence Crawford. I'm sure at this point in time, Bob Arum, with everything going on, wouldn't mind going through a buyout with Terence Crawford. As he stated, if Terence Crawford feels like he can make more money elsewhere in other bigger fights, then he's all for it. Now, we know, like I stated, he's under contract for 1 more year and 2 more fights. They could buy him out. Floyd Mayweather, Al Heyman, and Dana White could buy out Terence Crawford. Then they will have Terence Crawford in their pocket. They can make a fight with Terence Crawford, what is a massive fight between Terence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao, right? Because they're going to promote him all different. Okay, he's going to be in the headlines for getting a buyout and signing with Floyd Mayweather in the PBC. That's going to promote him. That's going to get him a lot of traction. And then a big fight with Manny Pacquiao. And then a massive mega fight for undisputed at welterweight between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr., right? And who better to promote that? Floyd Mayweather, Al Heyman, and Dana White. This is Dana White's opening into the sport of boxing, okay? Dana White has been looking to, for over a year now, trying to make his way into the sport of boxing, right? And what bigger fighter can you get and do business with Floyd Mayweather where Dana White can still focus on the UFC and have a leg in the sport of boxing, one of the biggest stars in boxing, with the best fighter in the world, in Terence Bud Crawford. Now, Manny Pacquiao was promised another Floyd Mayweather fight. He didn't get that fight. We saw as of late Timothy Bradley on the build-up with Terence Crawford and Kell Brook. Timothy Bradley stated that the PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, they made up stories. They never kept their word and gave Manny Pacquiao the Floyd Mayweather rematch. But he got big lucrative fights against Adrian Broner, and he got big lucrative fights against Keith Thurman. That he was reported to make over $20 million against Keith Thurman and over $15 million against Adrian Broner. Now, imagine how much money he can get if they build this fight up correctly between Terence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao. That would be absolutely enormous. So Dana White didn't come out and speak on behalf of Terence Crawford for no reason. This is no coincidence, okay? Dana White sees a shoe-in. He sees that Terence Crawford may be unhappy. Terence Crawford recently retweeted interview that Eddie Hearn, Matchroom CEO and promoter, who has his fighters fighting on DAZN out of the UK. There's no coincidence. Everybody sees a gold mine and they see an opportunity and they looking to pry Terence Crawford from the hands of Top Rank and Bob Arum. Bob Arum coming out and making these statements just open the door for and for the floodgates for everybody to try to make their way in to sign Terence Crawford, so they feel like they could promote the best fighter in the world, and they're going to try to promote him at as the next Floyd Mayweather, right? He's already considered the best, widely considered the best pound for pound fight in the world. They have big lucrative fights already on the table. There's not much you have to do. All you have to do is make the fights with Sean Porter, make the fights with Keith Thurman, make the fights with Manny Pacquiao, make the fights with Errol Spence. He's already well accomplished. His track record, his history is already set in stone. He's already considered the best. There's not much work you have to do promoting him outside of making these fights happen. And for the most part, these fights didn't happen because Bob Arum is just unwilling to pay big money to his opponents. Bob Arum stated that he wasn't willing to pay Danny Garcia big money. Bob Arum stated that he wasn't willing to pay Sean Porter big money. Bob Arum stated that he wasn't willing to pay Yordenis Ugas big money. And we already know Bob Arum wasn't willing to pay Manny Pacquiao the money he was looking for, the $20 million, when Manny Pacquiao was signed to Top Rank and HBO and ESPN at the time, and they were looking to make the fight between Manny Pacquiao and Terence Crawford at that time before he even left and made his way over to the PBC. He stated that he prevented that fight from happening. For one, he said that Manny Pacquiao was a friend of his. He didn't want to see him get hurt. And that number two, he felt like Manny Pacquiao was pricing himself out. It was a cash out fight. He knew it was a passing of the torch fight, and he didn't want to take the fight. So he was asking for massive amounts of money that was unrealistic, according to Bob Arum, to fight Terence Crawford. And then he made his way out. But look at the money he's made since leaving. So this is clear that Bob Arum, and the statements Bob Arum just recently made, it's abundantly clear that Bob Arum just isn't willing to pay the opposition for Terence Crawford for his legacy. Point blank and period. And so now you have Dana White. What better way to make your way into the sport of boxing if you could sign a guy like Terence Bud Crawford, and you could do business with your good friend in Floyd Mayweather and Al Heyman to make these big fights? It just makes all the sense in the world. So look to see. And Eddie Hearn coming out making the statements he did to defend Terence Crawford is not a coincidence either. That is simply a ploy for Eddie Hearn to try to get a leg in on signing Terence Crawford as well. Everybody's going to look to sign the blue chip prospect who's becoming a free agent. It's like LeBron James or of the NBA becoming a free agent. Everybody's going to look to sign him. Point blank and period. So that's all I got for y'all, man. It's not a coincidence that these guys are looking to defend Terence Crawford, all of a sudden making a whole lot of waves. Where was they when Terence Crawford wasn't getting these big fights to begin with? Why wasn't everybody making their voice heard when Terence Crawford wasn't getting these big fights to begin with? Why wasn't everybody kicking and screaming and saying, why isn't Terence Crawford getting these big fights, and pointing the finger at Bob Arum? Nope, this was the perfect opportunity. Bob Arum gave them the perfect opportunity for them to make their statement and to look good in the eyes of Terence Bud Crawford to try and sign Terence Bud Crawford. For you, Terence Bud Crawford, you want to go the Mayweather route, but you don't want to commit to either of these guys. Point blank and period. But Terence Crawford, man, is looking to fight Manny Pacquiao. Let's see how this all plays out. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed? Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shouts out to the entire LDBC. Shouts out to New Media. Shouts out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.